Hello. So cozy in here. My name is Anna V.K. Ross. I'm really excited to be here tonight. This is the first Grolier introduction I've done this fall, so it's nice to be back. And I'm very pleased to be introducing Lisa and Tadeusz and Kristin. So I'll just launch right into it. I'm just going to say what I've got to say at the beginning and then sit down rather than popping up and down like a marionette. Better that way, especially since I'm wearing a fancy boot. Okay. In Lisa Olstein's newest book, Distinguished Office of Echoes, poems surface through layers of paint, palimpsestic and exact, their phrases seemingly as friable as the antique pages from which they are excavated and assembled. I was the dowser, Olstein writes in an essay on her process included at the end of the book. Attention was my wand of willow, tugging in the direction of combinations of words and images, of narrative threads and lyric saliences. Maps of the Mediterranean and Middle East with illustrations of historical figures so removed from us that they seem to meld into myth, yet nonetheless deliver a familiar message. The battle was, at last, hope, panic, flight, never stop running. The book's final section, Near and Distant Regions, we find the body, the titular Distinguished Office of Echoes, capable of striking fire and containing a vast ocean of air, yet vulnerable to being drowned as certainly as a mouse in water, via the 1876 Treatise on Physiology and Hygiene. These phantom landscapes and meditations on war and the drowning body might evoke the recent pandemic, even if we didn't know the book's genesis. But Olstein, in transporting and transposing these fragmentary echoes of archaic theory and historical record, seems less interested in narrative or epistemological inquiry than a translation of emotional resonance or residue, as we ourselves become the offices in which these poems now reside. Speaking of translations, Tadeusz Dąbrowski's, did I say it right?
Perfect.
Poetry has been translated into 30 languages from his native Polish. Of his work, his compatriot Adam Zagajewski, has said he has the temperament of a realist, but his realism is of a poetic nature. It leads to a revelation, not to accusation. His poems achieve an astonishing degree of density, which is an adequate response to the absurdity of our world. Describing his own work while in conversation with Dr. Professor AI for the Paris Review, Dąbrowski has said, "A poetic metaphor is like a stone thrown in a hall of mirrors. It's a stone that shatters our existing view of the world, or at least significantly disrupts that view, spoils our comfort, extracts from us this cocoon of language where we've made ourselves comfortable, where we feel at ease." I confess that I did feel increasingly ill at ease while reading this conversation between computer and poet, as I wondered which was the mirror and who was wielding the proverbial stone. But I was glad to read, further on down the page, Dąbrowski's affirming declaration that poetic language is the most sensitive instrument, not only diagnosing, but prognosticating. In this sense, it's like a seismograph that warns us of tsunamis or earthquakes. It allows us to predict what will happen to us as social beings, to our civilization, but also what is happening, what will happen on the most intimate spiritual level to each of us. We might observe this personalized seismograph in the title poem of Dąbrowski's new book, The Scent of Man, in which the speaker describes sharing a train compartment with two couples who smelled of yesterday's and tomorrow's alcohol, cheap tobacco, and heroic helplessness. The predictive nature of that detail, tomorrow's alcohol, is so matter-of-fact that we nearly read by it on our way to the alliterative heroic helplessness, with its intimations of resigned martyrdom to a cause none of us, even the couples themselves, may ever be able to identify. But the poem takes a turn to the universal midway through. The question flashed through my mind: what does humankind smell like? And would its clean part be able, like a gigantic bar of toilet soap, to smother the nasty stench of the rest, to shut their decay in an airtight coffin of perfume? And where, in the midst of all this, does my own smell float? The hilariously quotidian surrealism of that gigantic bar of toilet soap again nearly distracts me from the very real questions of decay, moral, and death the airtight coffin of perfume the poem raises here. Smell is the sense most directly linked to our memory centers, making it unavoidable in life as a reminder of our own bodiliness and therefore mortality, making the poem's final question, which isn't punctuated as such, where in the midst of all this does my own smell float, a plaintive quest to be recognized, not only by his fellow travelers in the train compartment, but in the larger human order of smells preceding that coffin. Rooted in the foothills of Vermont, the prose poems and fragments here, sorry, I've missed a page, I think. Sorry. The Scent of Man will be, sorry, I'm just gonna charge on with my missed page, sorry. Lost my way here. Oh, here we go. Rooted in the foothills of Vermont, the prose poems and fragments here hold a foreboding sense of surveillance. Kristin Dykstra's debut collection of poetry, Dissonance, winner of the Phoenix Emerging Book Prize, is composed of prose blocks that resemble the shape of photo prints that inspired many of them. Dykstra describes her process in an essay for Poetry Daily. Dissonance emerged from walking through a landscape. While writing these poems, I found that trying to write out of sheer immediacy, envisioning the most direct possible relationship to the land, caused blocks. The solution required expansions on my process. I carried a camera through the place. It was helpful to tap into photography's conflicted honesties about recurrences from the past, about temporal distances, evoking time's willingness to enter and exit the body. Reading this, we might again draw parallels with translation, in this case, the photographic image to text. However, the book's title poem, excerpted alongside the essay, begins in absence. The beaver house is there, but no figure for beaver. The beaver dam is there, but no figure for beaver. The beaver seems to have exited the scene. leaving a marker of its past self as perhaps a promise to return? This might be an example of photography's conflicted honesties, as any of us looking at the photo would be tempted to mentally add in the figure of the beaver just out of the frame, probably gnawing on a trunk or diving beneath the dam. But the poem doesn't let us off the hook so easily, instead delineating the possibilities of the pond's future. If the beaver house and dam remain untenanted and untended, it may revert to a beaver meadow. If the beaver returns, water lines, a newly defined edge against the empty air. But should this possibility of return provide naive hope, Dykstra leaves us with a specter that returns us to the conundrum of the first two lines. 2-year-old beavers searching for new ponds get hit on roads every spring. Where is the beaver now? Where did we go? It's the we in this final question that catches the reader off guard, and in doing so recalls to my mind both Olstein's and Dąbrowski's projects. Here is a speaker citing herself and her reader within image, and the blanks that image suggests, and the poem reinforces. And here too is the universal seismographic prognostication of death, perhaps, and the ecological ramifications of human-built roads, but also of our connection to each other and to the scene. Where did we go? Suggests an interest in continuity and in recognizing the self, implicated there on the road and behind the camera, as the reason for the poem's being in the first place. Lisa Olstein is the author of 6 poetry collections: Distinguished Office of Echoes, Dream Apartment, Late Empire, Little Stranger, Lost Alphabet, and Radio Crackling, Radio Gone. Her nonfiction includes Pain Studies, a book-length lyric essay, and Climate, an exchange of epistolary essays with the poet Julie Carr. Her honors include a Guggenheim Fellowship, Pushcart Prize, Lannan Residency Fellowship, Hayden Carruth Award, and Writers League of Texas Discovery Award. And she is a member of the poetry faculty at the University of Texas at Austin, where she teaches in the New Writers Project and the Mishner Center MFA programs. Tadeusz Dąbrowski is the editor-in-chief of the literary bimonthly Topos. He's been published in The New Yorker, Paris Review, Boston Review, Threepenny Review, Ploughshares, Agni, American Poetry Review, Poetry Daily, Guernica, among others. Recipient of stipends awarded by Yaddo, the Omi International Arts Center, and the Vermont Studio Center, and the winner of numerous awards, among others, the Kościelski Prize, the Hubert Burda Prize, and from Tadeusz Różewicz, the prize of the Foundation for Polish Culture. Author of 10 volumes of poetry in his native Polish and dozens in translations, his new book of poetry, Descent of Man, will be released in the fall of 2025 by Arrowsmith Press. And I believe this is the first reading in which we have the book, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
We shouldn't say it's the publisher.
Oh, okay.
Well, he knows it, but
Yeah, okay.
The
So
official launch is tomorrow.
the official launch is tomorrow.
So it's like
At Boston University
Okay.
at 7 p.m.
All right. All right, well, shh. Kristin Dykstra is the author of Dissonance, winner of the Phoenix Emerging Poet Book Prize from the University of Chicago Press. Among her awards for literary translation are a Penn Award for Poetry and Translation and an NEA Fellowship. Dykstra's latest translation of The Star-Spangled Brand by Marcelo Morales appeared in early 2025 from Belize Books, following the late 2024 release of Jigs and Lures by Reina Maria Rodriguez from Alliteration Publishing. See more at kdykstra.net. So they're going to read in a slightly different order. I think Tadeusz will begin, and then Kristin, and then Lisa will finish. Yes? Okay. Please welcome Tadeusz.
Thank you. Could you remind me your name? Thank you, Anna, for your beautiful introduction. It's an essay ready to be published. Can't do it in my magazine because they will kill me. They will even more hate me in Poland that I'm promoting myself. But yeah, it's a great honor to be here. It's been a long time since I've been for the first time. It was 2011. And those days I was promoting this book, the first American collection entitled Black Square. In between, I've published posts, and now The Scent of Man came out from Arrowsmith Press. And yeah, I will have its official launch tomorrow. The Scent of Man. It's gathering together the poems from my 2 or 3 recent Polish collections, so it's not one-to-one translation. And yeah, I hope you will like these poems. I have changed a lot since my first American book. I hope my poetry has developed a bit. Maybe not. We can. Yeah, The Scent of Man on the cover. My little son is traveling with me to the States this time because I became father in a relatively old age. I'm 46, and I have 4-year-old daughter, and that's Kazik, who is a 9-month-old boy. But this picture was taken when he was 3 weeks old. So Kazik is with me, but not yet in this poem, because yesterday in New Hampshire, I have heard such a question: how much my little kids, influenced my writing. And I said I had no time to be influenced by my kids because it's crazy. It's like a circus. Oh Jesus! I started to love my job. On Monday when I have to go to the office, I'm flying to the office after the entire weekend with my family, which is sweet, beautiful, but it's a lot of work with 2 kids, especially when ones get older. Sentence. Perhaps at the beginning I will read something in Polish to make you feel spirit of the Polish language, and then I will turn into English. To jakbyś obudził się w zamkniętej celi i znalazł w kieszeni kartkę, a na niej jedno zdanie w nieznanym ci języku. I wiedziałbyś, że to zdanie jest kluczem do twojego życia i do tej celi. I spędziłbyś lata, próbując zrozumieć to zdanie, aż wreszcie by się pojął. Po jakimś czasie zrozumiałbyś, że znaczyło coś zupełnie innego i tak miałbyś 2 zdania, a potem 3 i 4 i 10, aż stworzyłbyś nowy język. Napisałbyś w tym języku powieść swojego życia. I gdy byłeś już stary, spostrzegłbyś, że drzwi celi są otwarte. Wyszedłbyś w świat, schodził go wzdłuż i wszerz, aż w końcu w cieniu wielkiego drzewa zatęskniłbyś za tamtym jednym zdaniem w nieznanym ci języku. Sentence. It's as if you'd woken in a locked cell and found in your pocket a slip of paper, and on it a single sentence in a language you don't know. And you'd be sure this sentence was the key to your life and to the cell. And you would spend years trying to decipher the sentence until finally you'd understand it. But after a while, you'd realize you got it wrong, and the sentence meant something else entirely. And so you'd have 2 sentences, then 3 and 4 and 10, until you'd created a new language. And in that language, you'd write the novel of your life. And once you'd reached old age, you'd notice the door of the cell was open. You'd go out into the world, you'd walk the land and the breadth of it, until in the shade of a massive tree, you'd yearn for that one single sentence in a language you don't know. Hall of Mirrors. It's very dangerous to know too many words. Each of them has its flip side, which also has its flip side, and so on ad infinitum. A mirrored hall of words. The sad side of happiness and the sad side of sorrow. Words with ears on the inside. A world thickly coated in panels of words. It's frightening. You don't know what's happening behind the wall or under the floor. Heel. It's not that I didn't like the taste of our bread. It's just that the slicer cut it into thick chunks because some old bread was lying in it. A heel that made the machine tread our loaf like a continuation of that loaf. To sum up, I was given, instead of the loaf cut into thin slices, several pieces, which meekly took home because you don't waste bread. They couldn't be divided into thinner pieces. They crumbled in our hands like the tree of life in a lumber mill. So it wasn't my fault, or yours, or even the fault of that alien heel which finally turned our bread into sawdust. Boots. I must take them to the cobbler. They've only got slightly worn down heels, says my mother, holding my winter boots from the days when I had a wife. Talking to a star, you're talking to yourself. Talking to the wind, you're talking to yourself. Talking to a stone, you're talking to yourself. Talking to yourself, you're talking to yourself. Hilltop. Returning to the very same place, let it be a hilltop with a view of the night city, where once you used to be, when your whole life still lie ahead of you, when everything was before, returning when it's already after, irrevocably, decisively. What a strange feeling it is, as you have a gift of prophecy in a world without time. Bouquet. Paulina, the gardener's daughter, cares about flowers doomed to die. If I bring her a bouquet, she frees it from the ribbons and gently places it in a hospice of a vase. When the flowers weaken, she trims their stems and plucks off their wilting leaves. She takes the dead ones to the compost. From the rest, she forms a new bouquet. Thus disappear in turn poppies, anemones, carnations, damnations, and forget-me-nots, until finally all that's left are Gisophilia and Judas peonies. Paulina, the gardener's daughter, sees a bouquet in the vase even when it's not there anymore. Letter. Yesterday I sent you a letter, and today on the phone you tell me you're pregnant. I pack up and return. You greet me at the airport. You are even lovelier than in my letter. And that's on its way to you. We build a house. Our child grows. Our parents shrink. Then a few years of sweat and tears in which we prudently pickle cabbage and gherkins for the ever colder days. In the coloring book of our life, there are fewer and fewer blank spaces. The crayons grow shorter. We try to be precise, but even so, we go over the lines. We busy ourselves with everyday matters, and our paths are ever deeper. They start to look like tunnels. Meanwhile, my letter is on its way to you. You'll open it when it suits you best. Yeah, the next letter, love letter, this time to my little lady, a love letter. She cannot, or simply will not go to sleep if the raindrops of her fingers are falling on my brow like the vanguard of a storm that will, however, pass on one side to one side. If the warm current of her breath is flowing into the lagoon of my ear, if even her big toe is stretching out in my direction like the nose of a mole, my tiny little woman, In some 16 years from now, another man will be lying next to you. I don't know if at that time I'll be still alive. So I'm shedding this tear now. Do I have any space for 2-3 points more? Yeah. Snake. This poem is devoted to one of the most recognizable Polish poets of 20th century in the US, Zbigniew Herbert. Snake. I read everything because I'm able to tell facts from fakes. There are texts one has only to flip over to the other side and they become honest. But mostly, reading demands strenuous labor, and then I sit with pencil in hand and draw a boundary line between paragraphs, across sentences. The line is usually long and narrow, resembling the snake from a card game in archaic cell phones. Quite often, wanting to separate truth from falsehood, I have to cut through the middle of a word. It takes a steady hand and precision tools. Let's call them the lancet of the intellect and the pliers of conscience. Sometimes, when separated from falsehood, the truth bleeds for a while and then dies. Poem made of gum. The point is to have a shapeless piece of gum which we can carry in our pocket and no on, and that will remind us of the most important thing. The point is to have a shapeless piece of gum which we can carry in our pocket and no on, and that will remind us of the most important thing. The point is to have a shapeless piece of gum which we can carry in our pocket and no on, and that will remind us that in the other pocket, we are already carrying a shapeless piece of gum that we can carry in our pocket and now on, and that reminded us of the most important thing. I don't know how the literary market, I mean the poetry literary magazines looks in the US, but in Poland it's even worse. The printed literary magazines disappear from day to day from our market. And I decided to write a kind of elegiac poem devoted to Adam Zagajewski, which is for me a synonym of those times when publishing in print meant something important. The literary journal's farewell for Adam Zagajewski. I dreamed I had a craving for a literary journal, the way one craves a freshly baked loaf. I strayed around the local kiosks, but all they had was daily news and crosswords, until at least in the booth of the fringes of the world, a vendor with a voice as bittersweet as a song by Schubert, with the face of Adam Zagajewski, said to me, "Tadeusz, don't compare me with Schubert," and handed me a copy of a literary journal which stands still unopened on my shelf today, crammed between the books like a sliced bread. Okay, and The Son of Man, the title poem, you know already because it was quoted in this foreword, so I will not repeat myself. Creative reading. I teach creative writing, but I don't believe in my mission. So I would say, the only thing I can really teach you is creative reading, and that's a lot. That's enough to perhaps one day become the poet self. Creative reading. I remember the day when I gave you a volume by Charles Bukowski with some poems marked. When you read them, You got scared that in this torturous way I was trying to drop you. Later, we were married to divorce after a number of years, as fine and fruitless as creative writing courses. Today, those poems fell into my hands again. I'm reading them at random, cautiously, to avoid doing you harm. And the last poem reads, I would like to read much more, of course, but I'm limited. But you can come tomorrow to the Boston University for more books also, because tonight we have only 5 copies. Why poetry is essential to you for life? Because it floats around the station like a pretty junkie whom you would be happy to screw, if not for your position. Or it laughs in your face like a child that you would pamper if it were yours. Or it causes trouble like a decrepit mother who can't remember a thing, who grabs herself, whom you'd bury alive in the woods, if not for your love for her and your position. Or it spoils your mood like a fortune teller who accurately predicts your wasted past. Poetry is necessary to you, so sometimes you can get out of yourself, see, and never return. Thank you for listening.
Hold on to the last column he just read because it's the perfect setup for the first poem I'm going to read. I'll start with some material from Dissonance, and then I'm hoping time will permit. I worked with 2 Cuban authors, have 2 books out within the past year as well. So readings have been a juggling process of trying to figure out how to break my time down, fit all of that in there, and still talk about these 2 amazing people. So Dissonance is a project that arose because I was trying to take my attention back, and there were several forces behind that. One was a major medical incident. The other was the first round of the Trump administration with the aggressive moves on your attention that, again, we are experiencing now. That constant sense of interruptedness, which also you invoked. The pandemic would become a third major force in there, and it just all overlapped with the origination of this project that was exploring, sort of walking through the landscape of the foothills of Vermont on a dirt road where I currently live right now. The book then took on all of these layers, different layers of the mind, because I could feel things moving on different levels, which was a nice parallel to the landscapes that's constructed out of different layers of people's minds as well. And I became very interested in that sort of parallel. But I too have children, and that became part of the page work of the final version, because thinking about all of those layers that coexist, I ended up giving the children, they're the baseline, right? Your adult mind is doing all these things here, and the children are there. And so they have their own place at the bottom of these pages. I'm not sure how that sounds when I read it out loud, but it makes, I think, visual sense when you look at the text. It's daybreak. Who are you? Setting a foot outward toward a ridge, inward toward a firmament. Foothills all around, an intermediary place. 5 degrees cooler than the lowlands. Disengage, re-engage. When I cast myself out of myself, see, it's a separation of 2 forms. Where one north lies. After the Great Depression, people left cities again in search of land. Some went north. Figures who disappeared into the hills. Transplants. Few places inside the hills look down upon lake or look out at anything other than a ridge, a short length of road, and the green. The richness of the earth, its minerals, some hard scrabble hills, some richer in calcium to the west, a slow fabrication of happiness. One looking down over the lake, a white wall was advancing, driving foam before it. The mountains sank down in the white. The wind began to sing. Vibration. The rain is rain, and for me and my lips and body. Those who lost someone in the hills, those who will. So that poem, there's some pro-library poems in here. There's a library in the tiny town on either end of this road. They are really weird, so I'm not going to read them. They're long, weird poems that look like this. But the quotation, there's an italicized quotation in the one I just read, and it's from a book from 1934, written by someone who had just moved to this region. And now we skip to the present time of the book. Chainsaws running in late spring. That pile is bigger than this pile. Figures stacking one neat pile now, one neat pile later. Seeing piles to come, piles that should come but won't. The afternoon light refracting. Time equals hours of heat in the winter. Segments further divided by species of wood. Some burn long, some burn fast. You are silver and gold. Who's got some kindling left? We'll weave an airy pile while this hemisphere leans toward the sun. Drop twigs and birch bark in a tub. Split more wood. What is the future value, or whether night could be enough? Night, refuser of accumulation. Fire, unsayer of accumulation. What you see, necessities. Those blanks where the piles are not. The children hum nearby. Also, as I was writing this, I was reading about living in a border zone, because the northern zone where we live is also a border. The closest major city is Montreal. We're right next to Quebec. And I began to read some articles about right-wing fantasies from 10 years ago about what the northern border could look like, and what immigration issues could look like. And I became very interested in some articles I found about the growth of the Border Patrol as the largest law enforcement agency, the largest growth in a law enforcement agency in the 21st century at very high speed and with very little documentation. I found stories of supervisors who had no idea what their agents were doing. And I began to pay attention to the zone where we live. Where the North lies. Northern New England lies mostly within 100 miles of an external border. Do you live inside a 100-mile zone? Maybe so. Most of us do. Numerous presents, bienvenue, reside within laws strewn across your 100 miles. Poke holes through their layers. Head for the hills. Witness the frantic creation of vulnerabilities. Figures fabricate vague threats above borderscapes, aching for the Cold War world quest for the best bipolar clash. Rituals of gathering clouds, or their concrete funded outcomes. How many newly hired agents? A ballooning glare out of sight yet nearby, the grail called forth from billows of fantasy, now hiring. The center operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, now hiring. To grasp at some people. Hands gesture. Underdocumented official hands rapidly withdrawn from sight. Checkpoints appear and disappear, concretely cloudy. The smell of caged children travels. Leaves here go on filtering sky and indignities. Everywhere the agents multiplied across our time. What dreams endure a childhood? That poem has quotations from the website of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office that operates in the next town up from us. And just last week, stories have started to appear about that office is going to be one of the centers of surveillance on social media using AI. Motors. A lot delineated by the edge of one motor sound and the start of the next. The ingenuities, the deafness, the triumphalism of noise, the way the noise of its triumph carries across valleys, windows of time separating one motorized sound from the next. You are silver and gold. I am lucid. If not, truth is motor noise. The world floods with motor photos, with odors of gas and batteries. Stop your mind. Pull blanks in the story. Bob elimination through the memory. One child will have a scar along an eye. A skunk made itself known in the night, its paw prints too. Again, the slush, top down, passed off as the face of the partitioned people, generally speaking, squeaking at skips. Another face, obscured in the space between, resembling your dignity. Thy stately rhetoric is such a non sequitur. Silver dust dropped from stars or horses. Sequence, no, a no sequence, when a you as a form has to start in and out of a deep. A non, the dark, and non sequitur, or the motionless light of some day. Out of its stillness, say, everything else was walking. The children, a birthday. Okay, in a Vermont book, you have to have at least one maple syrup. We do actually sugar in the spring. We have a very tiny, for the family only maple sugaring thing going on, but we see it all around. So here you go. Here's your. I enjoy some of the stereotypes and the tourism stuff, but I also kind of want to undermine it. But here we are. We do we do sugaring. So here you go. Figure in the sugar house. Where once were birthed lambs, now are birthed tree lines, sprung back into the sheep-nibbled sky. Figure mounts lines, pegs one tree to the next, seeks out the slight declination. You are silver and bronze, improperly weighted. This one installs the first sights of some plastic web, funneling sap across the land. Years ago, a moose walked into a line and dragged it miles off into the forest. Here and now, some cicatrix shows, a barb under the tree's grown bark. Some cicatrix under the figure's thick clothes, the now and future fear of the root slowing time, the diminished trees. When no one else is looking, the children dance like astronauts dance. And I'm going to end on one with water and geology. We've had an extensive drought, which you worry about a lot when you live in a rural area with a well. As meltwater runs, so runs sap. Speculate about the lifetime of a tree, its future years, the likelihood of drought. Speculate about the duration of the well reaching further below. Unseen folded layers keeping their crazy pitch. Divine with your rod where water pools. Drill for a well wherever. Hit fractures, hit bedding, hit foliation planes, tap recharging waters. These your downward lines. Envision bedrock from one plate or another with and without elevated radionuclides in its veins, and foothills and spaces between. Measure a water level for the first well. Measure here time into dreaming. Suspect an aquifer. Sniff for the immense grandeur of that aquifer, one to outlast them all. Rural foothill gold. Measure the money not saved up to pay for drilling wells. Hydrogeology speaks. It can't read the lifetime of any well, not within asymmetries raised in a hill. Put a well down and wait. This is what leads to a fear of time. This is also what protects you. Again, I warned you. There are translations, so I'm going to just briefly present these. Reina Maria Rodriguez is one of the major contemporary Spanish language writers on the world stage. She has not only won 2 Casa de las Americas awards back in the 20th century, she went on to earn the Premio Iberoamericano Pablo Neruda Prize, you may have heard of, given in Chile. And I'm aware when I'm working on her poems that there's a kind of also like sense of a literary history that one is sort of developing and drawing out in that process. And this project is part of this had the NEA grant, and then we ended up, after I was asked to write a scholarly chapter on Cuban poetry, and it sort of made me go back and think about the fact that I had other stuff from this time period. And so I ended up, with her agreement, we ended up turning this into an an investigation of her poetry from the 2000s. So I'm just going to read one example from her book. It does have an English language title, Catch and Release. She was not speaking English much at that time, so it gives you a sense of English circulating in Cuba itself. That's a historical reality. This is a poem that sort of captures a vision of what the arts do and maybe what poetry does. Catch and release is a sense of just a very ephemeral relationship to knowledge, but one that is also essential. And I heard there might be somebody in the room who speaks some Spanish. I'm going to just read a few lines of the original. I don't think I have time to read the whole thing, and also do Marcelo. But here's a little bit from Catch and Release. It starts with the quotation. El anzuelo de la voluntad de las limaduras del ser. Coger y dejar sin que el anzuelo penetre. Detener un momento a pez entre los dedos. Acariciar es demasiado gesto. Y poseer un crimen. Yo diría tocar de un modo diferente, que podría ser áspero al contacto de la primera vez, sin apartar la espina que provoca la escama. La espina es la mentira. That's about the first one. Catch and release. Hook for the will made from the filings of the self. To catch and release so the hook doesn't penetrate. To hold the fish between your fingers for the moment. Caressing is too grand a gesture. Possession a crime. I would call it a different way of touching, which can be harsh at first, but doesn't remove the spine that agitates the scale. The spine is the lie. In a time of something now lost, I tried to find the limit to the sense of touch. I have seen fish who sink like men, conchs shattered, and the curse of the animal who exhausts its sense of purpose between my fingers. I've said scale so as not to say absence of the desire to touch things that are transcendent. All right, lastly, I'm just briefly going to introduce you to Marcelo Morales. This is our second or third, I forget, edition, bilingual edition. And if you are interested in him, we actually just had a poem day up at the Academy of American Poets, so you can actually see his image. This is a book that could only have been produced in that weird little window of time when Obama overturned the US relations with Cuba and attempted to normalize them. Marcelo had come to the United States for our first book. He spent some time in Miami, where he had not really spent much time before in his life. During that visit, he met a woman there and fell in love with her, and in a way strangely paralleling the two nations, ended up doing a kind of U-turn. So the book starts out looking at Havana and tourism in Havana, where he thought he was going to be based, and then suddenly he's in Miami. I'm going to read a love poem that he wrote to this woman in Miami. And it starts with a quotation. I love you under the bridges, especially there. This love has cost you everything. Morning comes again and again in you because the morning loves you like I do. That's by Liz Clark Whitfield, who Marcelo met while he was in Florida, and he loved Liz's poems, so he incorporated her into this project. The sun rises again on America, and on the Hummers, and the semis, and on the silvery car bumpers, and on the blinking neon lights, and on the pearl necklace that your father gave you. And you wore it during the wedding, which is why you cried during the marriage, because pearls bring tragedy, or so they say. The sun rises and the cranes start moving, and when I pull off my bed cover, I feel static electricity running through it, and static warmth from the cat. And it's daytime in America, and on CBS News, sexual harassment and Make America True Again. And I put the coffee on. And this love is a catastrophe in my life and in my mind and in the immigration offices and in Walmart solitude and Target's housewares section. The sun rises and she's all I have. All I have in the desert and in the traffic behind the blinds and in the traffic of the walled-in streets. And we stop and she fills the tank with gas. And I love her waiting at traffic lights, or especially there. In a love that costs me everything, that costs you everything. A love you can see in the dark, or especially there. America, this is my love for you. More than anything, she is my love for you. And I love her as I love myself, or more, a lot more. Miami, this is my love for you, my only love for you. The sun goes down and the sun goes up, over and over, over and over. And I love her as she loves me. I want to think blindly, forever. Look, the light's coming in. Look, I'm in the kitchen again. America, I say goodbye to my love in the doorway. Look, every day of my life, I want to watch her leave for work. America, these are the days of love. And it's daytime in America, and in the ding from the microwave that insists on waking your parents, and daytime on the skittish garden squirrels, and on the skittish garden butterflies, and on the garbage cans, and the cars rolling down the avenue. And I'm the only one who loves. The only one who loves in a desert, and in the intricate logic of malls, and in coins for the Aldi carts, and in the Aldi. And I love her with desire, or especially like that. And night covers her because I do, or that's probably why. And I love her like the pioneers loved gold, like the Sioux the prairies. And America loves her like I love her, or probably because of that, or probably through that. And I love her more than Christ loved humankind. America, she's my love. She's my love for you. Miami, she's my love for you. It will last longer than plastic, I tell you. Longer than the plastic in the oceans, longer than the plastic in the earth. Before I turn it over to Lisa, one quick question. Does anybody know what happened when Trump became president with Cuba policy? No, you don't, do you? That's why I wrote a whole essay in the back, so you would understand the end of this book, because if you don't know anything about what happened next, then the story is, you know, very confusing, not because the poetry's bad, but because there's just so much that happened in the last 10 years. So I encourage you, especially if you're interested in things like sonic attacks, Marco Rubio, to check out this book. Thank you. Oh, and thank you to Anna for that introduction.
Excuse me.
These are to read along if you'd like, but please return them or buy them at the end. They're not free.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I started coming to this bookstore as a teenager. And it's really nice to be back and to look at some of the photos of readers, poets whose readings I attended here. Thank you, James. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, my fellow readers. So this is a book of collage and erasure-based poetry. And for me, the hybrid is like true and deep and complete. I don't feel the words without the pictures, if you will, the combination of the words and images. So I invite you to page along if you are willing. I'm going to start with actually the last poem. It takes about 8 minutes if you're the kind of person who likes to know. And can you hear me? Great. So the source text for this particular poem is Hutchinson's Physiology and Hygiene, published in 1876. It's a prototypical medical textbook. Near and distant regions. Shall we open our rooms to the night air? The hours, a cluster of geranium flowers, breathing snakes. Page 63, sorry, I should have said that up top. Okay. Everybody good? All right. Page 63. Pages are on the bottom in the center. There's a window. Not everybody. Okay. Shall we open our rooms to the night air? The hours, a cluster of geranium flowers, breathing snakes. Here, the air fits like the lid of a box and closes. Occasionally, it does not close in time, and we discover something has gone wrong. Unwelcome intruder. Now the approach of disease calls according to its wont. With needles or a sharp knife, you are introduced into a new realm, a world of little things, as vast as the starry firmament, which the astronomer nightly scans. At first, you feel strange in this new confidence, the standard authorities, the rate of progress, fondness, pleasure, no more completely known. Fix the eye upon a red wafer, upon a white ground, and green takes its place. Red ray, green accident. And then a cherry tree full of ripe fruit will seem the same color in every part, the color of a signal. The view moves out over a constant flow of tears, always adjusting itself to distances, but may become inconvenienced by an overflow upon the face before it can escape. The successive points of departure at regular intervals along the course of leaving by means of branches, the white variety, or in glistening, silvery bundles, from one to the other, one to the other. Communicate with the near and distant regions of the body under their control, like so many highways over which messages go and return. A ray of light, for example, falling. Stationed at the gate, invisible enemies grow from the margin, design their mechanism, scent their prey, find it is true. This bearing, these furrows are divided into hemispheres of gray and gray, around which a delicate network is arranged, sufficient to maintain the appetite to cleave and feed. Walking, sitting, and other acts of daily life become automatic. The dodging motion of the recruit when the first cannonball passes over his head. The balancing of 1,000 acts performed with great precision that have been necessary to carry his body from one point to another along a narrow ledge. By this beautiful provision, the mind is released from the charge of the ordinary, laughing, also sobbing. From habit, the mind is of the something has gone wrong. Each wave is a chain of names, perfectly arranged. The mallet hangs between membranes, the chain swings in the air, there, which air? The air upon which forms the atmosphere. Hollow chamber in which the remarkable lyre floats, sonorous impression upon a spiral shelf, destined to be conveyed to the distinguished office of echoes. Like reason, when it pours through a broken window, tends to demand a consequence, a hearing into the design of being so held. Through this window, then, the wave arrives at last conducted. The hardness of its walls within reach, the cold, familiar sound. An escape pipe upon a piano string struck, ascending as in a balloon, descending as in a diving bell. After the battle, Crowded into a cavern during a stormy night, confined, morning undergoes its passage from scarlet to vermilion, brighter than blood. And the air then is a sort of food. And borne in mind, the morsel is cut and called near. We have seen how quickly pale turns bright, drop by drop, until finally its wants are met, its losses made good, swallowed down, let in by the gatekeeper which guards the entrance. In they glide one upon the other with a secret to keep. Caught between, held in place, the body, like flint, is capable of striking fire when the body requires. Something has. This spark is enveloped on all sides by a vast ocean of air, and as in the air a fish may be drowned as certainly as a mouse in water, supply is not a simple element, but a chemist of the atmosphere, its power to combust. In that case, distance is the agent of this mysterious force, this theory of light, thrown into every luminous body moving in waves. But remembering is the audition by which we are made elastic, smooth water set in motion. Regard the heart. The heart carries the dark to the most remote regions. The dark that is dazzling, the point of entry, all blind spot, and then gradually the distance, from a certain distance, will disappear. Do you have one more poem in you? Okay. I'm gonna turn to the middle poem. It starts on page 39. The page numbers are still at the bottom in the center. And this, the source book for this was a 1905 primer on ancient Greek history. This poem's called War With. In this little book, the heroes are not some girls who love the past. Long ago, there lived islands and shores, little fragments. The sea rose and fell, and lines of animals and men. Not kingdom, but collection, bound together by a friendly feeling between oceans. Their songs. The fable, the worship, the curse on the house, the sad plight of the poor, the hero founder, he becomes tyrant. He asks for a bodyguard. He is expelled and returns. He returns. He resolves. They fall into his hands. A bridge of boats is made, ships built with money. The command is given, peace with, war with. Two enemies stopped to quarrel. The western gate drew up on troops well drilled, the finest armies massed after the fashion, cavalry on the left wing, troops on the right. Families, according to those days, now permanently fixed, might rise or sink and sink. Perhaps friendship could never be lasting. Uncertain whether to sail further or rest, your ships will beseech you, deliver us, and we will go, return home, prepare not to risk a second at sea. Shelter seemed to be wherever the battle was. At last, hope, panic, flight never stopped running. Nor had the part played by been the part played in. War sided with after, changed sides, and was first. Watch his army cross from burnt strewn into prayed to. No mishap cast the sea, the cavalry, cattle, the first, then the rest in their appointed order, and the last, at last, claimed under. And as though, and even worse, and at last, and at last. 5 years, 30 years, quarrel, complaints. Sparta promises to help, Athens refuses the offer. Sparta sends an army, her troops are sent back. Athens asks Sparta for help, the Spartans arrive too late. Siege and fall, despair at, surrender of. In legend, the fleet sails, the expedition, the exiles, they reach the sea. In history, the story ends in a fresh war. Lovingly, the river pours its waters into the sea, of which we know very little, no one passing through to tell us anything. In the old days, who slew the lion was home in their eyes, shepherd of hope and dream. But they found he could not work miracles after all, any worth their while. Little monarch, subject to so vast an empire of rivers, ill-fated king, rivers deliver the most wonderful laws. At last, a promise, an empire too good to throw away. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Tadeusz, Kristin, and Lisa for a beautiful reading tonight. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you to Anna for the wonderful introductions. Let's give Anna a round of applause. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to everyone on Zoom. If you would please pass your books along to the last person in your row, I'd be very grateful. We have some books for sale over here. Poets will be signing books. If you could all please put your chairs up against one of the walls, I'd be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know, I knew all those poems to be read because I'd read your book. It's wonderful.
So let's slide through here. Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
Almost all of it, and yeah. But I don't think it's working.
Because the university has nothing to say, but I hope it's still paying.
You know, if anything, I was imagine. What would they all say when you one back?
Yeah.
Yes.